Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Play Dump and Sabotage, no other than Miss Jeaneen Tang. Welcome
Hi.
to Book 101, Miss Jeanine, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
All right. Thanks so much, Daniel. Thanks for having me this morning. Uh, so, I am a speech language pathologist. I've been one for 23 years. I'm also a mother of a 12-year-old son who unfortunately suffered a traumatic brain injury and stroke when he was 13 months old. So, not only do I work with children with special needs, I do have a special needs son of my own. And I work in the schools. I worked in the schools for 8 years, and then I work with early intervention right now. I also work with adults in the hospitals, and have a passion for working with young children and working on early language development with their parents, caregivers, and teachers.
Miss Janine Tang, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. And how does playing dumb mean in the context of language development?
Absolutely. So, play dumb and sabotage is a term that I've used for many, many years. And it kind of plays on the idea that we over anticipate what children might need or want. Because as adults, we know what they might need or want, right? Because we can think about that, we can problem solve. And oftentimes we end up doing too much for these kids. And so we over anticipate what the child might need. And as a first time parent, I even fell into this trap of, oh, what does my son want to play with? What does he want to eat? What does he want to wear? Is he hot? Is he cold? Is he comfortable? What does he want? Or uh, would he need anything at all? And so I was over anticipating all of his needs, and in actuality, when you do too much for children, they are unable to react naturally with their environment. So we're doing too much. And then now, I work with children with early intervention speech therapy needs, and they fall between that 0 and 3 years old age range. And a lot of these kids are coming in as late talkers. They're not speaking, when they should be 18 months, 2 years old, and they are not speaking at the normal developmental milestones that they should be. But otherwise, they understand everything, it appears. And physically, they're running around, they're jumping, they're climbing, they're doing all these things that are normal developing, but they're late talkers. And oftentimes, this I feel is because they have parents who are very good parents. They want to take care of their child, but they've done too much for their child, and their child has learned that they can be catered to, that they don't really need to talk because things are going to be done for them. Or the child might have an older sibling or older cousins that might speak for them as well. So I like to have the parents under anticipate, so mindfully under anticipate, know what the child might need or want, but step back and let the child interact naturally with their environment. And then another version of play dumb that I love to use is, kids love being smarter than you. So
Yes.
building rapport with children becomes easy when you have play involved. And when you play dumb with kids, like I'll ask a kid, like, oh, does a sheep say roof, roof, right? And they're like, what? That's something that's absurd. So you might ask them absurd questions. You might do silly things that are not normal, right? Not logical. And for the kids, it helps to build rapport with them. They think it's funny. They think, oh, I'm smarter than this adult. And they have a lot more rapport and play with you. And then the sabotage part is all about practice, right? It's all about repetition and practice. So even if you like play a sport, if you play basketball and you're shooting free throws, you're going to shoot multiple free throws until you get really good at it. And sabotage is the same thing. You're not just going to work on speaking one time or every so often, you're going to do it all the time. So, really simple ways that a parent can sabotage is like during snack time. Parents often or teachers even will give a whole snack rather than just a little bit. Give the whole bowl of goldfish rather than just a couple pieces. If you give a couple pieces, and have the rest of the bowl in sight but out of reach, then the child can indicate either by reaching, by looking, by vocalizing, and that they want more. And then you can have that practice. Is it going to be, are they going to sign? Are you going to have them sign for more or please? Are you going to vocalize more, please? Or goldfish, or more goldfish, or I want more goldfish? So you can slowly build up to sentences by building up the nonverbal to vocalizations to single words to multiple words. So that's a simple way to sabotage. Another way you could have like their favorite toy in sight but out of reach, so they need to indicate. Or bubbles is a great example because once you blow bubbles, you need to blow them again. You need to dip it in again, right? So bubbles happen and they need to ask for more. So those are all examples of simple ways we can sabotage throughout the day. It's just creating opportunities to practice language.
Certainly. Very well said, Miss Janine. Very well said. So, how does mindful sabotage help children improve their communication skills?
Right. So with interaction, children can practice language. They can introduce, you as parents and teachers, we can introduce vocabulary. So by mindfully doing things like when I would dress my son in the morning, he didn't have words, right? When they're little babies, they don't have words to say, but they can absorb all this information that we're giving them. So if I said, hey, what do you want to wear today? Do you want to wear the blue shirt or the green shirt? And I would hold items about shoulder width apart so he can see them. And even though he can't speak, he might look at one of them, right? If I hold them
Yes.
too close together, I say, oh, do you want to wear the blue one and the green one? And I'm holding them side by side, right next to each other. I'm not sure what he's looking at. But if I hold it about shoulder width apart, then he'll look at one of them and I can model, I can speak for him. Like, oh, blue. Yeah, let's wear the blue shirt today. It's a great choice. Or, doing snack time, I might ask a child, do you want to have a cookie or an apple? Holding it about shoulder width apart so they can look at it. And then slowly by slowly, that eye gaze will turn into reaching or pointing. And then you can work on that signing again or vocalizations, working up to words and then full on sentences. So it's creating those opportunities throughout the day, right? And so simple things you could do, you could have a toy that is unable to be opened, right? So I might put a toy in a container that the child might want to play with, but they can't open the container. So they're either going to try and, shake it, they're trying to do something, open it themselves. If they can't figure it out, that's an opportunity where they can then you maybe hold the container up to the adult or myself, whoever it is, and indicate that they want it opened. So there's that communication of they are initiating, I need help. I want to play with this. And then we can work on what is that language that we're going to use during that interaction? Is it help me? Open please? I want to play with this, you know? And so it's creating opportunities where the child can naturally incorporate language practice throughout their day.
Interesting indeed, Miss Janine. And what is the difference between international sabotage, or no, I mean intentional sabotage, and frustrating a child unnecessarily?
Yeah, so intentional sabotage, right? Because you're going to meet the child where they're at. You're not going to expect a child who's nonverbal to speak in sentences. You're not
Yes.
going to expect a child who cannot crawl to run, right? So, intentional sabotage would be meeting the child where they're at. So, you don't want to create frustration because you're asking too high of a skill. So, if a child is, you know, practicing how to sign for more, right? Then you can have them, you might need to model the sign for more. You might need to do what we call hand over hand, where somebody actually helps their hands do the sign for more until the child's able to do it by themselves, right? So once they're able to do something independently, you might add a sign for more and then please, right? That sign for please. If they're able to vocalize more or You might
More.
add in, a syllable, more please, or um, more cracker. You might add in another word, and you're not going to necessarily make them say it, with perfect articulation, because these are little babies, right? Little babies and toddlers who are learning how to speak, and their articulation is not expected to be completely clear. What you want them to do is have that intonation similar to the adult speech, similar to what you're modeling for them, and you're having them mark these syllables. So if it's more cracker, you hear ah ha ha. That is okay, right? So you hear the intonation, you hear that those are different syllables that the child is trying to say. But I'm not going to say like, oh no, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it clearly. You need to say it again. You know, if as long as they're trying, the more they practice, the better they're going to get at it.
Certainly. So let's talk about techniques and strategies. How can parents and educators use play based learning to encourage language development?
Yeah, so play is really important, right? Children have great imaginations, and as adults, we lose that a little bit, right? So, to be very animated and don't be afraid to be silly and vulnerable, you know, to get on the floor and play is really, really fun. When you guys are doing, things like Old MacDonald Had a Farm, don't be afraid to be super animated for those animal sounds, right? And then when you're playing with vehicles, don't be afraid to make those sirens for the police car and the fire engines. Don't be afraid to make that really loud, because all of those are sounds that the child is going to be imitating, hopefully. And then those sounds will help them learn that they can make a variety of different sounds. And eventually, those sounds will be formed into different words. So, having that ability to play is really important. And then simple things like, if you have a ball, right? And if you can roll the ball back and forth, right? I love when parents are able to have either a parent and a sibling, or two parents, or two adults, whoever it is, a parent and an aunt, where they can one parent or person is sitting with the child, and the other adult is sitting across, right? So you have assisted play, right? Because a baby doesn't know that, oh, I need to roll the ball back to this other person. They have to learn it. So assisted play is really important. And then slowly that adult that's sitting next to the child can pull away a little bit and see if the child can interact, because they can learn, like, ball, please, roll ball, bounce ball, catch ball, throw ball. So you can have all these things that are associated with that target item. So the vocabulary is ball, but there's so many actions that can go along with it, right? And then you can add an adjective. Is it a blue ball? Is it a green ball? Oh, like throw blue ball, catch blue ball. I want blue ball. And then slowly by slowly, you're adding on these words and different um, descriptor words, whether it be a verb or an adjective or a preposition, like blue ball on my head, blue ball on the floor. So it can be different things. You're adding all these things where the child is hearing it, then they can see it, and then hopefully absorb that information and express it, learn to express it.
So, Miss Janine, how does exaggerating confusion help a child clarity or clarify their thoughts and requests?
So how does exaggerating confusion,
Yes,
like plain dumb kind of thing, or
yes,
yeah.
yes.
um so like sometimes I'll ask a kid like, oh, we're playing with the car. Should I eat the car? And they're like, what? But when you exaggerate different vocabularies and add some absurdities to that, it helps them break up what you said into the different parts. So should I, and you have a little pause, eat, like exaggerate the word eat, and then the car. So that all that verbal plus the visual will help them understand the concept that you were trying to say. And then that absurd question will make them think like, that's not a food, right? That's not something I would eat. What are some things that we can eat, or what are some things we can't eat? right? It's like, oh, I'm not going to eat the car. What kind of things can we eat, right? So, can we eat an apple? And they might say yes, right? I was like, can we eat our shirt? No. So you have these phrases that you say, "Can we?" and then have a little pause. Can we eat our whatever, our hat? And we can't do that, right? So having these over exaggeration of our speech and stressing the vocabulary and the concepts is really important. And oftentimes I tell parents, just slow your speech down just a little bit, right? Because adults tend to speak very quickly, right? And so it's like learning a foreign language for children. They are hearing this information, but sometimes they can't break up what the message might be because everything sounds kind of the same. But if you just slow your speech down just a little bit and have emphasis on certain vocabulary and certain concepts, then you can help the child understand that what the information really is, and adding visuals like gestures, facial expressions and such are really important as well.
So, Miss Janine, what would be your advice for those parents out there who want to encourage their kids to pronounce their word fast? So, to play dumb
Yeah.
to
So
their kids.
yeah, so playing dumb would help with so there's a strategy I use in my book. It's called tapping out or clapping out syllables, right? So each word is made up of syllables. And so if I say elephant, and I tell a child, you say it, your turn, right? I want them to say elephant. And if they say ele, or they blend those syllables together, I might tap out the syllables on their hand and say elephant, where they can then feel the syllables and then say the syllables back. Or I might clap it out and say elephant, so they might be able to articulate that better. And the more that they practice that, then the faster they'll be able to say the words in real time.
So, what would be your short term and long term goals in writing, Miss Janine?
Yeah, my short term goals for writing was to get the information on paper, right? So you want to have duplicate my knowledge so that I can pass it on to other people, whether it be parents, new speech therapists, other therapists such as occupational therapists, physical therapists that might work with kids, teachers, early educators, and just other family members too, right? Other caregivers like grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, and such. So the short term was to get that information out, which I did. It's in the book and it's published. And my long term goal would be really to shake up the way that we introduce language and practice language with children. And hopefully, by doing that, in turn, will actually decrease the number of children that need speech therapy. Because, like I said, there are so many kids that need speech therapy early on that are otherwise normal developing, right? They have understanding, they seem to understand everything that their parents tell them, and they seem to be physically sound. They're just late talkers. So some of these strategies would be great because then the child will be able to practice how to speak and use their language to communicate effectively. That's a really big goal. And then also to kind of pull back the veil of speech therapy, right? Because we are a specialized group of therapists, right? We go to school, we have a master's degree to be speech therapists, but we're not magicians. We don't do anything that you can't do yourself, right? All of these strategies that are in the book are very, very digestible. After every chapter, there are exercises on how to do that strategy in your daily life, right? And so by doing that, hopefully everybody learns a little bit about what speech therapists do, and also um, learn that it's not that difficult to apply simple strategies throughout your day to help every child, right? Whether you have a learning disability or not, if you're now neurodiverse or not, every child can benefit from a little bit of language practice.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Janine, and hoping for more empowering books like Playing Dumb and Sabotage. So, are there situations where playing dumb might not be effective or could be hinder communication?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Are there situations where playing dumb might be not effective or could hinder communication?
As far as I have experienced, I don't think that it could hinder your language development. I haven't had any negative or
Experience, for your
experience with
experience.
that. Yeah, I think it's all been positive, and it's a way for you to learn how the child uh, learns, and then also, uh, shape your interactions with that child in that individual manner, right? Because every child, every person's individual. So everybody's going to learn a little bit differently, but these same strategies can be applied across all children if you are uh, maybe tweaking it a little bit for each child.
So, how can this method be adjusted for children with autism or sensory processing challenges?
Absolutely. So when a child with like sensory or neurodiversity difficulties, if they are learning language, right, you might have to add in more visual or tactile stimuli as well, right? So when you're doing like syllables, you might have to have a visual of what those syllables are, right? So if I'm doing a syllables, I've used like blocks or cars to represent what that syllable is, right? Each car is part of the syllable. So one car would be L, another car would be le, and another fence. Elephant. So that visual concept would help all children, but for the neurodiverse or the sensory needing child, they that would help even further, right? The sensory child might not want to be tapped on, right? Because they might have adverse effects on their um, system, because they might be like, I don't want to be touched, or they don't want to have that feeling, but they might be able to do the tapping out themselves if there's blocks in front of them. If they are doing the tapping, that might be helpful. Um, for the children who are neurodiverse, like one of the things I love to do is to have them sequence, right? Because I think anticipation of what your day is going to be is really important, to know, like to know your schedule, right? So if I don't have my planner or my calendar, I don't know what I'm doing for the day, right? If I lose my planner, I am pretty much screwed. Like I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I learned early on that my son really benefited from me telling him, okay, this is what we're doing today. We're doing one, we're doing two, we're doing three. So, we're going to eat our breakfast, we're changing our clothes, and we're getting in the car. And then as he got older, the sequence would be a little bit longer, right? I could sequence his day a little bit better. And then I would ask him, I'm like, okay, so we did this and this so far. What's next? And for children with, especially with neurodiversity, they want to have structure, right? All kids crave structure, whether they know it or not. But a child on the autism spectrum disorder, with autism spectrum disorder, they definitely benefit from a visual, a schedule, right? Knowing like what their day is going to have, what's going to happen in their day. And if there's going to be a change in their normal schedule, to let them know ahead of time, rather than just saying, okay, oh, we're not going to do free time, we're going to do math now, or we're good. Either if there's a switch in their schedule, they need to know ahead of time. So I would recommend, a lot of schools will do that. They'll have a visual schedule for each child or the whole class. And if there's a change in the schedule, they'll let them know, as soon as they can. So whether it's at the beginning of the day or maybe even the day before, like, hey, today is Tuesday, tomorrow's Wednesday. Usually we have recess at this time. We're going to have a presentation instead, or something else, to let them know. So that's one of the strategies in the book, is to work on sequencing and scheduling. And I think for the neurodiverse community, it's really important because it helps them know that there is structure, there's anticipation, and some concrete planning throughout their day rather than, okay, we're going to do this now, we're going to do that next. And, when you don't know what's going to happen, if I was being led throughout my day and not knowing what was next, I would have a little bit of anxiety. So it helps the child have a little bit more structure. It has them decrease the chaos, right? And then it helps them be a little bit more present and in control of what their day might look like.
Very well said, Miss Janine. So before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, and its fifth season. People, fifth season already with my co-host, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letter senders all over the world. So how can caregivers track progress to see if these strategies are helping a child develop language skills?
Yeah, so you can take data if you want to, right? But I think as a caregiver, as a mom, I know that I'm overwhelmed every day, right? With different things my child needs and whatever. Um, and so if you can do a mental checklist, right, and know where the child is starting at, try the strategies and see how much they're able to progress, right? There has to be kind of some kind of tangible or visual amount that the child has progressed. So, say they're not speaking at all, and then you work towards vocalization, single words, and then two words, right? If at the end of you trying to use the strategies, can they say two words or closely approximate two words? Then they've definitely made some progress, right? A lot of parents will, wait until the child is 2 years old and still not talking, and then they're like, oh, okay, now we need speech therapy, where the child should have been saying single words at 1 year, right? And then
Yes.
between 1 year and 2 years, they're building that single word vocabulary. And by 2 years, they should be combining two words readily all the time. So as long as a child is, you know, being able to practice these strategies early on, I think you're definitely going to see more progress, um, than definitely than if you didn't do anything, because uh, because practice is really important early on as soon as you can. That's why they call it early intervention therapy, right?
Yes. Prevention is the cure, as they said. And practice make you perfect in the future. So, Miss Jeaneen Tang, thank you so much for sharing play and dump and sabotage to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Yes, you can go to my website. It's playdumbandsabotage.com, and there are links for my book as well as my social media on there.
Yes, people, I support Miss Jeanine Tang because if you support her, more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Janine, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Modigan people, see you soon. Miss Janine, thank you so much. I think there's something wrong with this. I will just leave. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye.